bread that calmed hungry lions, a vessel that could save a king. One road revealed the worthy prince. This is a tale of the water of life. There was once a king who had an illness, and no one believed that he would come out of it with his life. He had 3 sons who were much distressed about it, and went down into the palace garden and wept. There, they met an old man who inquired as to the cause of their grief. They told him that their father was so ill that he would most certainly die, for nothing seemed to cure him. Then the old man said, "I know of one more remedy, and that is the water of life. If he drinks of it, he will become well again, but it is hard to find." The eldest said, "I will manage to find it," and went to the sick king and begged to be allowed to go forth in search of the water of life, for that alone could save him. "No," said the king, "the danger of it is too great. I would rather die." But he begged so long that the king consented. The prince thought in his heart, "If I bring the water, then I shall be best beloved of my father, and shall inherit the kingdom." So he set out. When the eldest prince had ridden a little distance, a dwarf stood in the road and called to him, "Whither away so fast?" "Silly shrimp," said the prince, "it is nothing to do with you," and rode on. The dwarf became angry and wished an evil wish. Soon the prince entered a ravine. The farther he rode, the narrower it became, until he could neither go forward nor turn back. There he remained trapped like a prisoner. The sick king waited long for him, but never returned. Then the second son said, "Father, let me go forth to seek the water." At first the king refused, but eventually gave permission. The second prince traveled the same road and met the same dwarf. "Whither away so fast?" asked the dwarf. "Little shrimp, that is nothing to thee," replied the prince, riding on without another glance. The dwarf bewitched him as well. Like his brother, he became trapped between the mountains and could neither go forward nor back. As the second son also failed to return, the youngest prince begged to be allowed to search for the water of life. At last, the king agreed. When the prince met the dwarf and was asked where he was going, he stopped and answered politely, "I am seeking the water of life, for my father is sick unto death. Do you know where it may be found?" "No," said the prince. The dwarf replied, "As thou hast borne thyself as seemly, and not haughtily, like thy false brothers, I will help thee." The dwarf gave him an iron wand and 2 small loaves of bread. He explained, "The water of life springs from a fountain in the courtyard of an enchanted castle. Strike the iron gate 3 times with this wand, and it shall open. Inside are 2 lions with gaping jaws. Give a loaf to each, and they will not harm thee. Then hasten to fetch the water before the clock strikes 12, else thou shalt be trapped forever." The prince thanked him and continued on his way. Everything happened exactly as the dwarf had foretold. The iron gate sprang open at the 3rd stroke. The lions were quieted with the bread. The prince entered a splendid hall where enchanted princess sat motionless. He took the rings from their fingers. Nearby lay a sword and a loaf of bread, and these he carried away. Then he entered another chamber and found a beautiful maiden. She rejoiced when she saw him. She kissed him and said, "Thou hast delivered me from enchantment. Thou shalt have my kingdom, and if thou returnest, in 1 year our wedding shall be celebrated." She also told him where the water of life could be found. The prince thanked her and continued onward. At last he came to a chamber where stood a beautiful newly made bed. Being very weary, he lay down to rest, but he fell asleep. When he awoke, the clock was striking 12:15. The prince sprang up in alarm. He rushed to the fountain, filled a cup with the water of life, and hurried back toward the gate. Just as he reached it, the clock struck 12. The iron door slammed shut with such force that it carried away a piece of his heel. Yet, The prince rejoiced, for he had obtained the water of life. On his journey home, the prince again met the dwarf. When the dwarf saw the magical sword and loaf, he said, "With these thou hast gained great wealth. The sword can defeat entire armies, and the bread shall never be exhausted." The prince then asked about his brothers. The dwarf revealed that they were imprisoned between the mountains. The prince begged for their release until the dwarf finally agreed. But he warned them, "Beware of them, for they have bad hearts." When the brothers were freed, the prince gladly told them all that had happened. Together, they journeyed onward. Along the way, they came upon 3 kingdoms suffering from war and famine. Using the magical loaf, the prince fed hungry nations. Using the magical sword, he defeated enemy armies. Thus, he saved 3 kingdoms. Afterward, the brothers sailed home across the sea. There, the older brothers became jealous. "The youngest has found the water of life," they whispered, "and our father will surely give him the kingdom." So they plotted against him. One night while he slept, they poured out the water of life and replaced it with salt seawater. Then they kept the true water for themselves. Upon arriving home, the youngest prince presented his cup to the king. The king drank, but instead of improving, he became worse. The elder brothers immediately stepped forward. They accused their younger brother of attempting murder. Then they presented the true water of life. As soon as the king drank it, his health returned. The king believed the accusations. In anger, he secretly ordered that his youngest son be shot. One day, while hunting in the forest, the king's huntsman accompanied the prince. The huntsman was sorrowful. At last, he confessed the king's command. The prince begged for his life. The huntsman could not bring himself to carry out the order. The two exchanged clothing. The huntsman returned home, and the prince disappeared into the forest. Not long afterward, 3 wagons filled with gold and precious stones arrived at the king's court. They had been sent by 3 grateful kings whom the prince had aided. Then the king began to doubt, "Can my son have been innocent?" The huntsman revealed the truth. The king was overcome with regret and sent word throughout every land that his son would be welcomed home again. Meanwhile, the princess prepared for the return of her deliverer. She ordered a bright golden road to be built leading to her palace. She declared, "Whosoever rides straight along this road shall be my true deliverer, and shall be admitted." The eldest brother arrived first. Seeing the beautiful road, he thought it a shame to ride upon it and rode beside it instead. He was turned away. The second brother did the same and was likewise rejected. At last, the youngest prince emerged from the forest. Thinking only of the princess, he never even noticed the golden road. His horse rode straight down the center of it. When he arrived, the palace gates opened. The princess welcomed him with joy. Their wedding was celebrated with great rejoicing. Afterward, she told him that his father wished to see him. The prince returned home and revealed everything that had happened. He told of his brother's betrayal and how he remained silent. The old king wished to punish the elder brothers, but they had already fled across the sea and were never seen again. And so, the prince, having saved his father and won his beloved princess, lived happily in peace and honor for the rest of his days. Thank you for listening to The Water of Life. If you enjoyed this tale, please like, subscribe, and activate the bell so you don't miss our next story. Until next time.